Our president, Mark Tooley, just came in. So, Mark, you remember John?
Of course.
And, we'll let you go ahead and get started, John.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and really appreciate to be with you again. Last year I was here, and you welcomed me, and we shared ideas together. And I'm happy today again to be here. Every time when I'm here, I feel, to at least to stop in at IRD, because it's one place that we value so much in South Sudan, for getting many people to know about us during those difficult times. And Faith McDonald is our hero in South Sudan. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Today, maybe before I run there, I want to let you know one of the reasons I visited this year. I was attending a 4-week leadership training in South Carolina that has been started by one of our good bishops, Mark Lawrence, and I was one of the third batch. And then Bishop Lawrence has a vision to bring at least 30 Anglican clergy and bishops from around the world to come and sit for a whole month and reflect on God's mission and where they are and what they can contribute, because he's very worried on what is going on in the Anglican communion. And we seem to be like leaving the gospel, and so the only way we can encounter that is to form leaders. So Mark hopes to be, in 10 years, maybe 300 Anglican clergy and bishops would have gone through his program. So I'm privileged to be one of the hopeful future leaders for the 300 people who can go through that Anglican leadership formation. And so Barbara and I thought we should be here so that I can also update you. And as I update you today, I wanted to think a lot about how do we change lives in South Sudan. So the whole discussion I want to talk to you today would be surrounded about our responses. So I want to bring a little bit about how things are in South Sudan at the moment, give you basic information about South Sudan, and a little bit of how I am involved as part of the response to change lives. And so that's what I wanted to do this afternoon. And I represent Good Shepherd Foundation, and which houses 3 ministries: Good Shepherd College and Seminary, Good Shepherd Academy, and the Christian Time newspaper. The Christian Time newspaper, which actually IRD supported founding it.
And Church of the Apostles.
And Church of the Apostles, way back in 2004, and to communicate to the world about good things that the church is doing. And all these 3 things are all one vision to create good leadership and support, changing lives in that country. So I'll tell you a little bit about them as we go along. And just before we go along, I always want to remind people about the flag of South Sudan. And some people always confuse it with the Sudan. Last year I was in another place, and I found they picked the flag for Sudan. And for the one of Sudan is upside down. They would put the black one down, and they would have no star, and they would put the red thing up there, and then the green thing also. So I try to always let people know this is the flag of South Sudan, and let's keep reminding ourselves there. And for some people who may not know South Sudan, you would find South Sudan in that African geography. Down there, the little thing that is shaded yellow is South Sudan, but the white one is the Sudan. So actually a small part of the whole Sudan is given to South Sudan, but we felt we actually cheated in our border boundaries. But currently, that's what the map of South Sudan will tell you. We are bordered by a number of countries, and so that's where you can find us exactly. And I operate in Juba, right there. That is our capital. Many of you may recall. And so I always go back and forth between Kenya and Uganda and Juba to do those three ministries, to train pastors and lay people in the refugee camps in Uganda and in Kenya in Kakuma refugee camp, where I have stayed for over 10 years. And now in Juba to run the Good Shepherd Academy and Good Shepherd College, also in the same little facility that my dear friends have visited last year.
And there's that beautiful Nile.
And there is that beautiful Nile, the River Nile. And that could be Juba. And actually, as you see the little bridge there? The other part is the center of Juba town, up there.
Beyond the bridge?
Beyond the bridge. That is the center of Juba town. And that's where the presidential office and the state house and everything would be. When you cross that bridge down this way, that's where my school would be. It's another big settlement on your way to Nimile. And the only tarmac road in South Sudan ends at that bridge, 200 miles to Ugandan border, which was actually built by your money. The American government did that. I would guess it was money that must have been approved during Bush time, when Bush government was really having good intention for us, and everything ended there. We always plead to American people to be with us, but they stopped by doing that. Just to remind you, current population for South Sudan would be about 11 million, as per the South Sudan Bureau of Statistics. But the National Census in 2009 would say 8 million people, but we feel in South Sudan we could be a little more than 12 million people, because not everybody was there in South Sudan. Myself, I was not counted. So we are really big. And again, also it was another way Khartoum was oppressing us. They would not communicate the right numbers of people in the south, so they would keep underestimating our number as part of their agenda. South Sudan have people groups and tribes. Over 60 tribes are there in South Sudan. It's not only Nuer and Dinka. There are so many tribes, over 60 of them. And Christianity would be the larger faith in our country. And I keep praying that Islam really remain under zero. And
-5.
You're a good man. Yeah. And others would be following other traditional beliefs in our country. I just want to highlight few challenges that we are experiencing now in South Sudan. A little over 75%, I would always say 80%, is the state of illiteracy in South Sudan, and even worse among the women. About 5% of the women would be able to know how to read and write, and that include actually when I went to Ministry of Education, I realized the people they counted who knows how to read and write include the primary level dropout. And they could have dropped out in standard 1 or 2 or 3, and they are also part of the statistic of people who read and who know how to read and write. But this is very, very, very disturbing in our country. Many people in South Sudan would not live beyond 50, and that give you a lot of questions because of diseases and so on, and war and everything. So many people will lose their life before they reach there. And because my passion is also in education, I would say really, this is statistic is UN statistic, and I don't believe it. But because it is UN, they say they have verified probably less than 20% of the school-going age children might be attending schools. But you might think they are attending schools, good schools, but probably a lot of them would be under the tree, under big trees, and that's where they are having schools. Some of them would be 150 children per teacher, maybe in a government-run school or another church-run school, and so that's how things are now. And then there is really high level of poverty in our country. People really, when people refer about $1 a day, is actually nothing a day for many people in South Sudan, because they would be thrown out in many parts of the country because of the many things. Many NGOs and other organizations who report South Sudan as a country that is really torn apart by war, and this is Mercy Corps statistics of how the things are at the moment, with a lot of people under risk of starvation, and I agree with them on that. A lot of people are under that risk, and they would say many people have fled the country. I would agree with them. At least not less than 4 million people uprooted from their communities, and a little more than 1 million people around those countries. So there are some few facts on that, and there is actually humanitarian crisis in our country, and that is really true. And some people would say humanitarian crisis would be in Upper Nile, where there is that site up there. Many people would think that this is where the only humanitarian crisis is, because of Machar and his people would say, oh, that is where the only crises are and people are starving. But whatever that has been happening has caused humanitarian crisis in the entire country. Sometime when you go to South Sudan, you see a lot of destructions, and this is one of the recent pictures immediately after 2013 December 2013 crisis. Bor town was burned down, one of the really growing town, and it was burned down. And when you read in the news, that is the town where 19 women clergy were murdered and killed in the church while interceding, and you would wonder who killed them. Us, you know, it was like ourselves, the war that we did ourselves, and
It was the White Army, right?
the White Army ran over this town and ran it down. Yeah, and
John, can I just ask real quick, where would John Garang University have been in that?
yeah, it would be a little this way.
Okay.
Yeah, it would be a little this way near the airport.
Was that destroyed too?
It was, yeah. Yeah.
Can I ask another question? Bor itself is actually the heart of the oil industry in South Sudan.
Yes.
How close is that to the infrastructures of the South? Because those would seem to be a very interesting target to go after when the town was attacked.
The oil areas of Binti would be way up there.
Yeah.
Some, I would say maybe some 400 miles away from Bor, all the way up to Malacca.
Yeah.
But Bor also around it, there are a lot of unexploited oil wells, and there were some companies. I think Total has a headquarters there, and they were trying to start
Because there has
exploring.
supposed to be a branch of that Kenyan pipeline.
Yes, it was
It's supposed to go up to Bor.
Yes, and that would be the nearest pipe to go to Kenyan place. Anyway, when you go to South Sudan, this is one of the pictures that NCA provided recently in July.
What's NCA?
Norwegian Church Aid.
Oh.
they would be doing a lot of humanitarian things among the displaced people, and this was from WOW, especially during the recent fight in July, and this was a state of issue. Well, you would ask yourself why all these things happen. It's because of the South Sudan War and Sudan War. In 1950s, many of you are aware, Sudan was in war. In 1980s, up to 2005, that is the war I experienced. Sudan was in war. And 2011, South Sudan became independent after that crisis. And again, back to war in 2013. But the war between 1950s all the way to 2005 was the war of identity, war of religion, of faith, war of oppression, and war of resources. So, and waged by the northern Sudan, and with deliberate intention to really impose the faith of Islamic faith onto the people of South Sudan, and to completely use the resources of South Sudan to build the North and to build other Arab agenda or Islamic agenda. That has been the war that was going on in that time of period. So when things were really very difficult, South Sudan was left with no choice but to really separate from the North, because North would not allow South Sudanese people to participate and be leaders in the country, or South Sudan was not allowed to really benefit from the resources of the country, which are actually located in the South. Talk of the oil, we might be the second leading producing country in oil in Africa, and South Sudan doesn't benefit from it. And agriculture, all the farms which were in Reng and Upper Nile region, up on the other little place you saw there, that was the farming that was supporting Sudan and the Arab countries, and South Sudan would not benefit from it. So I think it was very difficult in 1983 when the declaration of Sharia law became the main thing, and Khartoum was deliberate, and there was no hiding. They were very open, and that is the period where they run down all the villages and run out people, and that's where you get to hear about Lost Boys things, and I was part of it, and my story is documented in that God's Refugee book, and that is the period a lot of things were really damaged in our country, and all that, those legacies and pain of those period came with us to the independence, and then we get the independence in 2011. We were so happy, and when we were so happy, we celebrate, we set up the government. Again, Khartoum did not let us go. And I think you really need to understand this. Many of you would think that why is South Sudan still in war from 2013 up to 2015? Simply because Khartoum did not let us go. They knew they have to cause some trouble among us. And that was the thing they were using before. As I mentioned earlier, we have over 60 tribes in our country. You may think all the 60 people will think the same. Not really. Of course, we have differences among our communities, and Khartoum was wise enough to use those little differences and capitalize so that we can turn against one another. And they have been using that divide and rule tactic for many years. And even when we separated from them, they did not stop that. They continued sponsoring militia group. They continued to sponsor some politicians who would want to say, oh, government of South Sudan is not good, Salva Kiir is not good, everything is not good, and then they would run to Khartoum and they would be supported. They would be talk of many militia groups, including David Yao Yao. And then where do you think Machar got his ammunition to fight with his own army? From Khartoum and many other militia groups. And so that is the legacy and the problem that Khartoum is still doing with us. They are very smart. They cannot leave us because they knew as we fight, as we disrupt one another, as the government keep remaining shaky and weak, they would continue pulling the oil and pulling other resources. People would say, oh, the new government of South Sudan has not done something. Okay, it has not done something. It just started in 2011. And this oil, remember, South Sudan has no its own infrastructure. It didn't have its own capacity. So the pipe was still going to Khartoum. When we became a different country, we had to rent it. So we are paying rent. And then, and again, as part of the agreement, we are also giving a little to Sudan. And when the oil prices dropped down, we were almost left with zero, and Khartoum would insist we must pay rent, we must pay whatever percentage we. And the agreement was done in a way that it is in figures, not in percentages. So a lot of resources are going to the north. And do you think they would be happy to have this government strong and stable so that they can figure out their own? No, they would have to exploit that process. And that's why you hear in 2013 things really turned out. Machar rebelled against South Sudan, and a big war started again, and that's when Bor was burned down and any other place was burned down. That situation has turned South Sudan to a different state. I'm sorry, I didn't mean the state of union. I mean the state of the country. Right now, as part of the 2013 war, it has put our country into where there is a lot of recurrent violence. And you would find communities fighting one another, a lot of displacement, a lot of hunger and starvation, a lot of diseases. And I want to let you know, hatred and target killing, as we speak now, are a big challenge for South Sudan at the moment. People even are coding other tribes to give them names like MTN. And because these numerous militia groups are spread out, and they have created their own coding to refer to certain tribes, to be like, for example, MTN would be referred to Dinka community. So if this militia group and Vivacell would be referred to Nuer. Another, and MTN is a telecom line from South Africa. Vivacell is another mobile telecom from Middle East. There's another telecom line called Gemtel. Equatorian would be referred as Gemtel. So if these militia groups, depending which militia group has found you, you would be called on your name. So, and usually because Dinka are majority in the country, they would be everywhere. And militia group would find you, and they would say, oh, you have MTN. Is it MTN with service or MTN without service, without the network? That means MTN without service would be a civilian like me, or a woman, or a child. And then MTN with service might be maybe a Dinka man with a gun. And and that's the same thing with Vivacell and Gemtel. So there's a lot of target killing going on now, and the spread of militia group and the rebellion is so wide. And again, with a very weak government, things are really, really very difficult. And a lot of family breakdown. And what do you think would happen when the state of war is recurrent and recurrent? Things become difficult. That takes us to the question of really what do we need to do, and everyone need to respond the way they want to respond. Others are busy working on reconciliation and peace programs, of which I am actually part of it. The church is really very busy working hard on bringing communities together, and our archbishop, especially the Archbishop of Anglican Church Daniel Dengbul, and Archbishop of Catholic Church Pauline Lokudu, are really working together, and others like Isaiah Daau and others. So the church is trying to really promote unity, peace, and reconciliation. I'm always part of that, and others are working on how to be part of the humanitarian programs. And but the big thing is how do we really respond? Recently, the government of South Sudan announced what they call national dialogue for the people of South Sudan to really dialogue and understand one another, so that we break down this issue of tribalism. And but each one of us has a call. Personally, I have my own personal vision, and of course, when you want to respond, you have to have a vision. And this is the vision I have for South Sudan. And to have, God is calling me to the area of leadership development. I see everything going wrong in our country, and I blame it to the leaders. And because if our leaders are wise, there's no need to divide ourselves into tribes. So I felt God calling me to the area of leadership development, to develop leaders, raise and equipping servant leaders through Christian-based education for transformation and building of a peaceful society in South Sudan and beyond. My feeling is like, if we raise and equip leaders in our country, not raising them in any other environment, but through Christian education, that's how I see that good leaders can be formed, so that we can create that transformative nation and peaceful society. And back to the scripture, Paul is very clear, and he said, unless you teach the truth of Christ to the trustworthy people, reliable people. So you teach reliable people so that they can pass on whatever good thing they have learned to other people. And that's how my mind is totally wired. And that's the scripture I stand. That's the scripture that Good Shepherd College is standing for. That is the scripture Christian Time is standing for. That's the scripture that the Good Shepherd Academy is standing for. Over the years, I have been running around training pastors in the refugee camp, because I have lived there. And we were doing mobile training with Good Shepherd Leadership Training Program, and then in Uganda, in Kenya, and also been writing positive reporting through Christian Time. And 2 years ago, my wife was saying, well, it is important to invest on the adult leaders, but we need to do this kind of leadership development in a long-lasting way. And the long-lasting way would be having school children go to school and educate them from the beginning. And then you would instill values in them, and they would grow up as leaders who are fearing God and who have the knowledge of God. And that's how Good Shepherd Academy came up 2 years ago.
Good for Sarah.
Yes, so Sarah was saying this is how it should be started, and my wife was very passionate about that.
John, I'd like to testify to the group about this mission in a way that I've seen it manifest in a very interesting way. In 2013, I was in a regional governor's office in South Kivu, and we sat down with him. We work with an orphanage, doing very similar things with the same philosophy. And this guy's basically a military leader. He told us straight up, teaching the gospel of reconciliation to these young people is the only force in their society that is going to heal what has happened in the war. And I just wanted to be an encouragement to you, because we work in Washington. There's not going to be a policy that can do what you're going to accomplish through this. And I've seen reconciliation between Japanese and Papua New Guineans. The church is healing, post-apartheid South Africa. So this really will bear fruit.
Definitely.
I want to encourage you on that.
Thank you very much. And so far we have some progress we have made. When my wife pointed me to the children education, my brother, we were born 4 of us, but my older brother died because of diseases in the country, and I followed him, and that's why my middle name is Chol, C-H-O-L, means compensation. So my parents were saying they were compensated when I was born after my older brother died, and then my younger brother Joseph, and another fourth brother who also died during the running when we were thrown out in the village. So he was the one running with my mother, but he died because probably of the disease, and because my father was killed, so my mother stopped at the fourth child, and she ran away by herself. I ran away by myself. My brother also ran by himself, and during the run he got his arm shot, and he's now actually paralyzed by one hand. But God kept us, and we were reunited in the refugee camp, and we studied in the refugee camp, and God's people, found us, and we went through education at the Christian University, Daau University, and my brother learned there, and he became a finance and accounting person, and he currently works for the Kenyan bank. So he thought what he should give to his brother, and he bought a piece of land. He went back to South Sudan like others, and he bought a piece of land in Juba and give it to me and said, this is my gift to your family. And then my wife quickly said, this is where we will put the school. Yeah. So Good Shepherd Academy was put up there. There's a little campus that we have. Faith has been there, I think, and Barbara, and that is the front face of the gate, and that is me standing there, and you may ask a question, how did you put it up? It's not a very strong facility, but it will last us maybe up to more than 5-8 years, and the floor is paved, and the walls and the roof is iron sheet, very strong one, and the wall are timbers, and when my brother gave me the land, so I start talking to my friends and said, well, I got a land and I want to build a school. My wife is saying we should build a school, and then people will say, oh, what do you want? Then I would say, oh, I have the land, but I need iron sheet. Somebody would give me 10 iron sheets. Another one would give me 10 timbers. Another one would give me some bags of cement. And that little white thing is a toilet with 6 units. It's a flush toilet. And one person helped me build it, one of the clergy who has a good business, and he gave me 1,000 bricks to build it. So altogether, that little campus was built by the contribution of so many people. Right there in South Sudan, not even in the U.S. So there's no any dollar there. No, in that facility, but other things were supported by the. So we built 6 classrooms, actually named after church leaders. As I mentioned earlier, we want to teach our children about what the good leadership does in the church. So we opened our classrooms last year, and so far we have 140 children at the moment. Well, before you see the children, there is that paint that you want to see, and it has also a story behind it. It was painted by a Nuer young man, and we met and explained to him what I am doing, and he said, you know what, I can help you. And I said, okay, how would you help me? He's in the refugee camp, in the IDP camp in Juba, and he was saying he want to help. I said, oh, what can you help me? He said, I will draw for you the picture of Good Shepherd, and Jesus as a Good Shepherd, and I'll draw for you. And when he was telling his people in the UN IDP camp, and then people asked him, well, but that is a Dinka school. The head of the school is a Dinka man. He said, well, he's a Christian. I can do it with it. So he would come and paint, and my people would be also say, oh, but this is a nerd guy doing, and then I would say, he's a Christian. So we working together. So that, I love that picture, and whenever you go there, you would see it. And without that school, we would have no that opportunity to work together with that nerd man and how Christianity teaches us. So we enrolled 117 children last year, and right now there are about 140 from nursery school to standard 3. And so that you would see the need for our country. There is huge need of education. Last year, we had to turn away about 335 children because our facility cannot accommodate, our curriculum cannot allow them for other classes. As I was speaking, as I was here, my new head teacher, John Deng, report to me that 187 children have applied again for this new term. So this is, and I believe we're going to send away a lot of them because, and these are our beautiful children. And every day they will come, they would assemble there in the middle, they would be singing Christian songs and they would pray and they would sing national anthem and they would greet one another. They would go to their classrooms and learn English. And every day we would provide them food and porridge in the morning and then lunch, which is usually rice and beans. And recently this year, last year, we had our graduation for the first batch to graduate, and we had a little procession, and we had like 4 or 6 music guys who come from the police force nearby our school, and they volunteered and said, we would like to do the procession with the children. And then we did the procession. The tall guy there is one of the people who just joined on the road. So as the procession of the 16 children and teachers and the music band was coming into the school compound, everybody in the village joined, and it became a massive procession because this is a new thing. They have never had any graduation in their life, and now a graduation of a young children, not a college graduation, but a primary school graduation, but many people came because it's a joy for them. And I remember during the graduation speeches, one woman was saying, we are celebrating our independence today. This is what our independence was supposed to give us. We see like this is today our new country. So to see our children going to school, to see them speaking English and singing in English. So it was really a big joy for them. And then they were awarded their certificates. Bishop Daniel Deng, one of the new bishops, he's actually a lost boy, that he was resettled in Australia, and he came to speak in the graduation. And there is me and the parents behind, and children were really, really excited, and we realized it was, look at that young man. He was called and to be awarded his certificate, and what really impressed me is the look of the other children, and really very happy with them. And we realized during that graduation, I felt like God is really walking through this vision. We could give people a platform to really say messages of hope and encouragement and prayer. And Bishop Daniel, during the graduation, was praying over the little children, and he was saying, oh, I see bishops among you. I see president among you, and doctors and lawyers. And you know, in prayer, usually people have to be quiet, but this was not the case. When Bishop would say, I see president, the whole crowd would say, oh, amen, and hallelujah, and you know, and I realized that was really a good thing for them. And as I mentioned earlier, not only are we teaching English or academic things, we try to do character formation. And that boy being held there was announced as the humble pupil of the year. And the teachers said he never fought anybody. He is always sitting quiet. He's very happy with everybody. And he was awarded to be named as the humble boy of the year. And when Bishop heard that, he picked it up and he got another speech. Yeah. So, and everybody was really happy. And these children came to perform what they call unity dance. And around us, there are some other 2 schools and some other children from the churches. And they came together, and these these young people you see there are different children and from different tribes. In our school, 9 tribes are represented. So these guys, they came together and they chose one dance and one song. And they chose a Choli dance. And they said we would dance by one dancing, all of us together. So like the boy who is beating that little whatever is not an Acholi. He's a different tribe man. Same thing to the guy who is doing the drumming and others who are singing. And the song is a song from Acholi, but the people are different. And we were so happy, even seeing parents from different tribes coming to us and seeing the dance together. Everybody was so excited and really happy. And I mentioned earlier we do training and equipping of pastors. This was one of our class, and I would teach those classes myself and other bishops. And last year I was in the refugee camp. This would be the number of pastors I would be teaching. And the gentleman with the dark glasses is actually a Nuer guy, but in the refugee camp in Uganda. The rest are different. I think there is one Equatorian guy among them. And you know, in South Sudan, people really want to learn more of the word. So I feel like this is the opportunity to keep teaching and equipping. As you know, during the war, many people became Christians, and in a very hard time, they never had time for teaching and discipleship. Pastors never had time to go for theological education and many things. So this became our time for theological teaching. So many ways you can help us and be part of us. I would still request all of you to be praying with us and to advocate and share about us. And there are opportunities to sponsor children. I was in Florida 2 weeks ago. About 7 people sponsored children, 7 children. Barbara took me to her friends in Delaware who would study Bible together. 7 people came up and sponsored children also. And then you can sponsor a teacher so that he can continue teaching. Because the main problems I have now in that school would be paying teachers, feeding the children, and run the facility. You can come visit like what Faith McDonald did last year. You can even come visit, not necessarily to be teaching in my school, but to come and learn about South Sudan and share more with others. And I would also urge you buy my book and review it and get a story of me or give it to others. And I would like to, it's very important to see my wife who has that vision. That is Sarah there, and our little boy, Isaac. Isaac was very unwell yesterday. He spent a night in the hospital, but he was released this morning. And so this would be Isaac and Jacob and Abraham. I don't know whether I have a picture of Jacob now. It was too heavy, so I took it out. Jacob is really taller than I am, and he's 17. So I really want us to be part of this desire to make South Sudan create a generation of children with joy and peace, and to create a situation where we can help our country and South Sudan to bring up leaders and good citizens of the country. And I feel like this is a vision all of us can participate. And I want to end with this picture of this little young man. He's called Kur. He's one of the 7 children from his family who was able to come to school. And as I mentioned earlier, many people in South Sudan, over 70%, would be younger people at the age of 30 and below. And but especially with the young ladies, they would be married off when they are 16. So Kur had 3 sisters ahead of him, and they are all married off. And so he's the only one in the family. His father was killed during the war, the recent war actually, not the old one. and the 2013 war probably involved, and many of the children in my school are come from single-headed families with the mothers, and of which their husbands died during the long war and the recent war, and but I invite you, let's do this together in the name of Christ. I would end there. I have taken a lot of your time.